You just clicked on this video, so you know what time it is? It's time for some more Between Two Cars. This is where I rant about car-related topics to help new car people or just give my insight if people are wondering what my thoughts are on certain topics. And today, I think is a very, very important topic that a lot of car guys, especially new car guys, ask. Drew, should I buy the V6 or base model version of my vehicle? Specifically, I guess in this aspect, let's talk about V8s or American muscle cars. They have EcoBoosts, they have V6 versions, not so much anymore V6 versions, but they've had them over the years. That used to be the thing, a V6 Mustang or a V8 Mustang. Which one should I get? A V6 Camaro or a V8 Camaro? Which one should I get? V6 Mopar, V8 Mopar. You guys get the gist. One car has never been made in anything other than a V8, and that is this beautiful creation right here. Divine right there. But Mustangs, Challengers, Chargers, Camaros, all of these have suffered from the gas plague or the government ruining things. And I don't think it's actually that. I don't think that's the case on why they make them. I think they make them because most of the population don't care about going fast or having a motor that vibrates their balls. So most general population will just, they'll just go for the cheaper or the more fuel efficient one, which would make sense. But if you're a car guy, if you're a guy that wants to be in a sports car or wants to have fun in your car, which one should you get? And the only answer is the V8. I'm sorry, that is the only answer. If you are in the car scene, I am sorry, but if you do not if you do not buy the V8 trim package of your muscle car, you are going to be heckled and laughed at until you sell the vehicle and eventually upgrade it. And it's going to happen. You can deny it all you want. No, I wanted the EcoBoost. I wanted to be 150 horsepower slower than everyone else. It's fast enough. I wanted it. It does make good power, and modern day EcoBoosts, especially paired with like the 10-speed, like yeah, it's a fun car, I'm sure, but it ain't no V8, and it'll never be a V8. And if you go check any V6 muscle car guys' search history, there's going to be two things. One, same-sex porn. Second one is going to be how to make your V6 sound like a V8. And that's an issue. If you're secretly Googling that, then you know you bought the wrong vehicle. I'm sorry, I was that guy. I had a V6 Mustang. And you know what? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the V8 isn't worth it. The V8 is much, much more worth it than the V6. It's just factual. But we'll go ahead and we'll analyze it through foggy goggles, and we'll see if we can rationalize buying a V6 or an EcoBoost over it. So let's go ahead and start out with price. That's a big thing. A lot of people argue, oh, well, it's just so expensive to buy a V8. It's just so expensive, man. The GT is just so much money. You guys want to hear a dirty little secret? You don't have to buy a new car. Yeah, if you're forcing yourself to go out and buy a new Mustang, yeah, it's going to be a little bit more expensive to get the V8 trim package. I'm sorry. But if you're going out and just looking for a vehicle, you can buy a used Gen 2 for like low 20s. Maybe even under 20s, depending on mileage and stuff like that. You can buy it. You can buy a Gen 1 definitely under 20, and you can buy a 3-valve for probably under $10,000. So that's not a good option. Now, I'm not saying that you should go out and buy a 3-valve over an EcoBoost, because an EcoBoost is probably faster. But at the same time, you're not selling your soul to pay for a 4-cylinder Mustang. You're not selling your soul. So, yeah, realistically though, if you're looking at a Mustang and you can't afford the V8, then either wait or buy a different model / year. Because yeah, just don't settle. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't settle. If you are interested in the V8, save up and buy the V8. You will thank me later. Buy once, cry once. If you buy the EcoBoost, you're going to be crying the whole time of ownership, and then you're going to have to go out and buy the fucking the GT. So, same thing with Camaros. I know I'll be generally talking about just Mustangs in this. I'm just American muscle cars in general, though. Just save up and buy the V8. Mopar's a little different. We'll talk about Mopar a little bit later, but as for Camaros and Mustangs, there's only one engine in kind of both vehicles. You either get the V6 or EcoBoost slash the V8, so the 5.0 or the 6.2. Mopar has a bunch of different V8s, so again, we'll talk about them in a bit. They're a special case of complicated. But yeah, just if that's your one thing is money, then buy an older one or save up. Sorry, it has to be said. Now, if you don't care about cars, I feel like this has to go without saying. If you're not a car guy, then it really doesn't matter. If you are just buying the car to daily drive and you do not care about modifying your car, you're not going to throw wheels on it. You're not going to throw suspension at it. You're not going to throw an intake on it. If you are not going to modify the car, then it really doesn't matter. And that might be shocking to some people because some people tell themselves, I would never daily drive an EcoBoost. I would never daily drive a Prius. But the reality is, one, I mean, it sucks daily driving a V8, and two, it's not practical. It's not cost effective. If you're driving to work, you're not having really fun anyways. So just don't. Like when I worked with my brother, I had this car, and we would carpool in his Miata because, well, it made more sense. Why would we carpool in something that gets less than half of his fuel economy? So we would carpool in his car. But anyways, yeah, if you're not modifying the car, if you are not trying to fit into the car scene, or if you're just buying a daily driver, then it really doesn't matter if you buy the EcoBoost. Buy whatever you want at that point. But specifically, if you are trying to fit into the car scene, if you are trying to modify your car, if you are trying to go to car meets and car shows, you have to buy the V8. I don't write the rules. I'm just looking and I'm reading the room. You have to buy the V8. But let's go ahead and talk about some other excuses that every 4-cylinder or V6 owner out there spits out of their fucking mouth. One thing I often see a lot is people say, well, the 6-cylinder or the EcoBoost is more balanced. It's better around a track. Well, sorry, fucking Jeff Gordon. I didn't know you were building a fucking track car on all-season tires. You fucking loser. I didn't know that. So, yeah, to sit here and say, oh, well, it's more balanced, unless you are fucking going to the track weekly, that's a dumbass argument. Yeah, I guess a little bit less weight up front probably does help with balancing out your vehicle and help with weight distribution and shit like that. But, let's go ahead and look at, Shelby. What, Shelby, he's a professional racer, right? Shit. What fucking motor does he throw in his vehicles? A V8? What's in the Shelby GT350R? A V8? What the fuck was he thinking? He could have just thrown a 4-cylinder in that bitch and got away with it. Just because it's more balanced doesn't mean it's faster around a track. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So if you ever hear some dipshit spout that shit out of his mouth, slap him for me. Just give him a good old fucking, give him a good old slap. So, yeah, that's one thing they always say. Another thing is they say, oh, well, I could make mine just as fast if I boost it. If I boost my V6, if I turn up the boost on my EcoBoost, I could be just as fast as a V8. And you are half true on that one, I will admit it. You are very clever in your observation. You can boost V6s. You can turn up the boost on your EcoBoost. You can make more power. Give you a little pat on the back for that one. However, what happens, crazy, you know, this probably will never happen, but what happens when the V8 owner boosts his car? What happens when he adds horsepower? Good fucking luck to you. That's all that means. This comes down to there is no replacement for displacement. And depending on when this video is posted, you'll either have heard me chanting it in one of the earlier videos or in one of the upcoming videos. So just be ready for that. But yeah, you cannot, and will not, especially if you settled for a V6 or an EcoBoost, you're not going to beat a boosted V8. I am just going to tell you that right out of the gates. And if you do, you are going to spend more money in the long run than if you would have just bought the V8 in the first place. Because one thing that a lot of these dipshits don't understand when they buy these, you know, V6 vehicles is, a lot of the components on the vehicles aren't rated for, sports car levels, horsepower levels. So your brakes are going to suffer, your transmission and drivetrain is going to suffer, your suspension is going to suffer. There's a lot of different components. They don't just change the motor. Most of the car is different. Now, there are some exceptions. I'm sure a lot of vehicles, maybe even nowadays because companies are lazy, they might use some of the similar parts, but if you go shopping for parts, typically there's V6 parts and V8 parts, and that goes for suspension. So like they will say, oh, well, this will fit a V6 Mustang. It won't fit a V8 because it's thinner. Sway bars, suspension, linkage, all the control arms. Some of the shit's different. So not all of it, but some of it. So it's just going to cost more. And there's also less aftermarket support for those platforms. I don't know anyone that's personally built an EcoBoost because I'm not friends with morons. But obviously a joke. But move mirror. There you go. But I would have to assume that building a V6, there's less options. Building a four-cylinder, there's less options than there are for the V8 alternative. So a lot of these excuses that they give you, I mean, they're just that. They're excuses, and they're bad ones at that. The money thing is a bad one. The weight distribution thing is a bad one. Being able to keep up with one is a bad one. Another one that they always say is, well, they look the same. I mean, you look at a V6 and you look at a fucking GT and they look the same. They don't look the same, though. They have different body lines. They have different fascias. They have different exhaust tips. They have different this and that. And it all adds up. The interiors are different. Different clusters, different gauges, different seats some of the times. There's a lot of differences. So if you're looking at it at a very surface level thing where, yeah, I mean, it looks like a Mustang, well then yeah, it is a Mustang, but is it a Mustang? I don't think so. So just all of these arguments suffer. Now, let me convince you to save up your money and to buy a V8, as if all of these reasons already weren't enough, okay? One of the main reasons is, in the long run, if you are trying to build a vehicle, it will be cheaper. Once, you heard me say it a couple minutes ago, buy once, cry once. If you have this mentality when building a vehicle, your life will be a lot easier. If you buy cheap parts because they're cheaper up front, you're eventually going to have to buy it more, or you're going to have to buy the more expensive part eventually. So let's take injectors as an example. I deal with this a lot, actually. The Supra had cheaper injectors than like what's on the Mustang, okay? A lot cheaper. I think a set of injectors for the Mustang is $1,500 to $2,000, something like that. It's expensive. Maybe, is it that much? I don't know. Expensive though. The injectors on the Supra were like $700. And that's not just because there's less of them. That might be part of the reason, but they were cheaper. And some of the trade-offs were, they weren't necessarily E85 compatible. You had to clean them more often. You had to put in an additive sometimes to help keep them lubricated. And if the car sat for a long enough time, they could lock up. I have never had those issues happen with a higher end injector. So buy once, cry once. Save up your money. Don't cheap out on parts unless it's stuff that you can cheap out on. But realistically, I don't recommend cheaping out on parts. It's just not a smart idea. So buy once, cry once. Yeah. Same thing with the V8 platform. If you save up and you spend the extra $5,000 and get the V8, $5,000 while being financed, if you are financing a vehicle, that only equates to an extra $100 a month. It's not a big difference, okay? If you can't afford an extra $100 a month, then you probably can't afford the car to begin with. That's just the reality of the thing. If you're like, yeah, I could afford $350 a month, but not $450, like $450, I'm going to be living on the streets, then don't buy the car. So there's just that $100, and then at this day and age, a month, that's really not that much money. So yeah, I would just, if I were anyone buying a car, buy once, cry once, buy the Mustang or the V8 version of whatever muscle car you're getting. You will spend less money on making it go faster. Your dollar per horsepower will go way further. Here's a good example, I think. If you boost a V6 Mustang, you can maybe get it to 500 or 600 horsepower, okay? you're going from 300 horsepower to 500 or 600 horsepower. We're talking about Coyotes as well. Like, so this is the, well, 2013 and up. Okay, that's the years we're talking about, because I just called V6s Coyotes. They're not Coyotes. We're talking about those generations, though. So I think those come with something called the Cyclone. I think that's what the V6 is called for that generation. And they're pretty beefy. They can handle, like I said, 500 to 600 horsepower pretty reliably. Might be some other parts on the vehicle that can't, but for the most part, they can handle good power. Now, if you boost a Coyote of similar year, you can get that 500 to 600 horsepower to 600 to 700 horsepower, or 700 to 800 horsepower, depending on the year. You can boost a Gen 3 Coyote, throw some E85 at it, and you'll make 900 horsepower. That's how this car was set up when I first did the Coyote swap. It was a stock engine, stock everything, just oil pump gears and a Whipple, and an E85, and it made 930 horsepower. Since then, I've built the motor, and not up the boost or anything, just built the motor, and I guess a little bit more displacement, and it made, technically it read less on dyno, but I was rubbing like crazy, so damn, I am rubbing like crazy. Look at this. I got tire chunks coming out. Huh. It is what it is. Anyways, yeah, buy once, cry once. You'll make, if your goal is to go fast, do not buy the V6 or the 4-cylinder. You will regret it in the long run. So just don't do it. What other reasons? Oh, you have a muscle car. You don't want your muscle car to sound like a fucking vibrator. I'm sorry, you just don't. You don't want it to sound like a wimpy ass import. I'm not saying all imports are wimpy. Don't get triggered. But yeah, you don't want it to sound like that. You want it to sound like a muscle car, like a beefy hot rod. And you're never going to make your V6 sound like that. I was coming home from Airsoft yesterday. Yes, I started airsofting again. And there was a V6 Charger flooring it. He was a couple cars ahead of me, just flooring it, going crazy, right? Sounded like shit. Sounded like a 350Z, as most V6s do. I don't think by the way, I think I'm starting to realize 350Zs don't sound bad. V6s just in general sound bad. It's just a V6 thing. It's not 350Zs. It's not an Infinity thing. It's just V6s. They just sound like shit. But this guy's Charger sounded like shit. He was flooring it, making some noise. And I pulled up next to him. Again, I'm just chilling. I'm not like trying to intimidate him or anything, but I was in this car. And he immediately cut that shit out. Immediately. Like, just, he stopped making noise. Stopped, doing little baby pulls. He shut the fuck up. So, I don't know if it was an intimidation thing, but he might have heard the 1,000 horsepower Coyote next to him and been like, oh, maybe I need to fucking chill. So, yeah, I would just not advise, if you're trying to build a cool car, to buy the V6 or 4-cylinder muscle car version. Okay, I mentioned Mopars earlier. I know, we got to get to them. So let's slowly transition into that. Mopars, Jesus Christ, man. These guys got so many different models. Which one is the right one to buy? The correct answer is none. But realistically, if you're a Mopar fanboy, you have to pick one. I would skip out on the V6, skip out on the GT, which is like the all-wheel drive V6. I would skip out on the RT, which is the 5.7 Hemi. And at the very least, you have to get the 392 or the Scat. At the very least, you have to get one of those. I have never seen a good-looking 5.7, and I have never seen a fast 5.7. I've seen a fast Scat, so I can't deny that. I've seen one of them. They've been pretty. That was pretty quick. And I'm talking quick as in he beat my buddy's ZL1, which was modified. So it was a fast car. But I have never seen a fast RT. Never. Even if you throw a blower on it, you're making maybe stock Hellcat numbers, which isn't all that fast to the real world, to the race car scene. A stock Hellcat isn't that fast. Stock Red Eye, it's a little faster, but a stock Hellcat 707, really not all that fast. But at the very least, yeah, you gotta get the Scat. I'm sorry. Fucking Mopar did this to themselves by having all these different trim options. I don't even know why they offer the 5.7. Like, what is the point? I'm not a Mopar guy, so maybe somebody with insider knowledge or more experience around these vehicles can tell me. I've heard they're better with boost than the Scats, but better in what way? Like, Can a stock 5.7 handle 800 wheel horsepower? I don't think so. I don't know if a fucking Scat can either, but I'm just talking from a straight NA experience. You're getting a lot more horsepower with the Scat. I do think that all of them are overpriced garbage. I do think for some reason they have this crazy tax on these cars. But yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, personally, I wouldn't buy any of them. Sorry, I just wouldn't. It is a true authentic muscle car. It is a big fucking boat with a big motor. But I just don't think it's a very fun car to drive. Like, I know people don't classify, some people say that Mustangs and Camaros are pony cars and they're not muscle cars. They classify them like that. But I would rather take a more nimble pony car than a fucking gigantic boat muscle car. I'm sorry. I don't think you can take a Challenger to the canyons and have fun. I don't think you can take a Charger to the canyons and have fun. I think you can go, but I don't think you're going to be able to touch a Corvette. I don't think you're going to be able to touch a Camaro. And I don't think you'll be able to touch any of the newer Mustangs with IRS. Older Mustangs with a live axle, solid rear axle, yeah, you could probably fuck with them. But any of these newer cars with the IRS, yeah, they can handle. You know, especially if they're set up right, they can fucking handle. So, personally, if you're looking at a Mopar, I mean, if you have to get the 5.7, go for it. But it's such a shitty motor from factory, and it's like if you're buying the 5.7, that means that you're probably restrained and limited on money. I'm not sitting here acting like everybody has unlimited money. I know that, but if that's your reason because you're limited, you're gonna be limited then on performance as well. So I know you're not gonna buy a blower then. I know you're not gonna really do any crazy modifications, and you can still enjoy the car and have fun. Don't get me wrong, but I think you're gonna regret it down the line and be like, shit, I should have saved up a little bit more, because you're gonna have that one awakening moment where you're like, wow, this exhaust did nothing. Wow, this intake did nothing. Wow, I have to supercharge this car to barely compete with like a full bolt-on Scat. And I think that's going to be like the waking point of like, fuck, I messed up. I've been there. Trust me, I've been there. I was there with my V6. I was doing research for it, and I was like, wow, I could spend all of this money and change out all of these factory parts, and unless I boost this vehicle, which I don't even think an 02 V6 would handle boost, but unless I boosted it, it wasn't going to do jack shit. So that's why I was like, no, scrap it, move on to the next thing. So yeah, but I guess let's talk about imports now. Imports don't have the same problems as us muscle car guys. They don't have the same. A lot of their cars come with the same engine. A lot of them. I think there are some exceptions though. So the Honda Civic Type R doesn't come with, I think, the same motor that the Honda Civic Si comes with. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they don't come with the same motor. Or if they do, they're different in some aspects. So it's a little bit more difficult because like they don't change engine sizes. Like you don't see a Honda Civic Type R that can come in a V6. No, they don't. You don't see a BRZ that can come with a turbo. You don't see that. So it's a little bit more of, there's a little bit less options when it comes to, I guess, imports. You either get the premium or not. And that's kind of all it comes down to. I don't think you need to buy the premium model of any car. Like before I bought this vehicle, I was going to buy a base S550 GT because I knew I was going to rip out the seats. If I wanted to rip out the infotainment, I could have. I knew I was going to rip out all of that shit. So I don't think that really matters. It's like I said, especially if it's like a track or a sport-oriented vehicle. But if you are going to like daily drive the vehicle, then I would get the premium model. You're going to like it more in the long run. I just hate cloth seats. I hate them. I'm cool with Alcantara. I'm cool with suede or whatever. Leather is, in my opinion, the best. But I fucking hate cloth seats. Especially this newer material. Like it feels like baseball pants or like football pants. I don't like that. I just don't like the texture. That's my thing. I'm a weirdo. So if I was buying like a new Mustang to daily drive, I would probably go with like a performance pack or something like that, because you get the better seats and it's just going to be a little bit nicer overall, and you get like the oil cooler, the trans cooler, the brakes, the wheels, the suspension. Like they do soup it up a little bit. But yeah, when it comes to imports, There's not many options. They really don't give you many options. You either get the base model or the premium package. And yeah, I mean, depending on what's involved, maybe get the premium. But at that point, it's just personal preference and what you want to spend. You don't have to. That's the one thing that I think is the dumbest thing ever. Like, people always say, oh, you're in a base whatever. You're in a base BRZ. Okay? Like, I don't value leather seats as much as other people do. Or I don't value X, Y, and Z, heated seats, heated steering wheel, sunroof. Whatever the circumstances are. Not everyone values that shit. Like, personally, I'm not a huge sunroof guy. If I got a car and it had a sunroof, cool. I don't really care. Oh, a perfect example. I was hanging out with my boys the other day, and they were like, "Oh, your roof is it's a Targa, right? Like, you can remove it." And I was like, "No, like the ZR1s is one piece. Cannot remove it." And one of my buddies was like, "Oh, that's kind of lame. Like, fuck, I wish it was a Targa." And I'm like, personally, I don't like Targas. Like, I genuinely don't like Targas because I don't like how creaky the chassis is and how flimsy and not solid it is. I like one rock solid thing. Same with the Supra. I wanted a hardtop. I wanted a coupe. I did not want a Targa with it. And it just so happens to be that a coupe hardtop JDM is the cheapest one you can buy. So it just lucked out in that aspect. If you wanted a coupe Targa JDM, then yeah, that's a bit more expensive because it's more rare. And vice versa for the States. For the States, if you want a hardtop USDM Supra, that's more rare. So I just wanted a hardtop because all of my other buddies, they have a creaky roof problem. Some of them leak. I just, no, not for me. Not for me. And you also see my skin. I have really white, fragile skin. And if I am in the sun, I turn into Larry the Lobster. So, but yeah, I got a little sidetracked right there. What I'm saying is, though, at the end of the day, if I were choosing a muscle car to fit in with the car scene, you have to get the muscle car. You have to get the V8. You don't have to go out and get the ZL1. You don't have to go out and get a Z28. You don't have to go out and get a GT500 or a GT350. You just need a V8. What I don't like, and I guess we'll see how this plays out with my girl's car, is when people get like the V8 and then they do like the GT500 like body kit or something. That shit's goofy. So a little spoiler, literally, we're gonna go pick up some parts for my girl's Mustang tomorrow. She is keeping it. She sold her Lexus. She's daily driving her Mustang. She's just like, screw it. I already bought this car. I'm gonna keep it. So she's keeping it. Good job for her. We're gonna have more content with it. To spice it up a little bit and make it a little different, we got a sponsor that is going to hook her up with a Dark Horse style wing, a Dark Horse rear valence, since she now has a quad tip exhaust, and a those like LED the like daytime running lights grill that like all of the S650s do, and then we're gonna wrap it. So we're gonna like change the whole look of it and give it a nice transformation. So we'll have to see how it looks. I do think the rear valence is gonna make the biggest change, and the wing. The daytime running lights up front is just so the front end doesn't feel so stock looking, I guess. But yeah, we're trying to transform this car as best we can, and I'm trying to convince her. Sorry, I'm fucking picking a scab. I'm trying to convince her to pick up some sort of blower. I don't know if she will because she does daily drive the vehicle. So, but if she picks up like a Pro Charger or something, it's not going to really affect her MPG. So we'll have to see down the line if that's the case. Maybe I can get in touch with them once we do some more to it and we build some more propaganda around it, and we can get some parts. But yeah, we do have some parts coming for it. We're gonna go get them tomorrow, probably install them tomorrow, and then we'll get some wrap and send it out to go get wrapped. I am not wrapping it because fuck that. I hated wrapping this car. I did it, and I never want to do it again. But yeah, like if she were to go out and get the Dark Horse front end, the Dark Horse this, Dark Horse that, I think that would be a bit tacky. But if she also then adds power to back it up, I don't know. Then I think it might be worth it. But we'll have to see. I don't think she doesn't want to do all that. She wants to keep it simple. She doesn't like the wing that it came with. It's so small. It's like, why even include it? So yeah, the Dark Horse wing I think looks good. We were looking at, Steeda has a GT500 style wing, not the fucking park bench one, but the almost ducktail one. It's from the last gen GT500. And it looked good too, really reasonably priced. But yeah, I think the Dark Horse one will make her car look just a little bit more aggressive than that one. So, should be pretty good, especially with the valence. Like I said, the valence, since we converted her car to a quad tip, is going to really liven up the rear end and make it look thicker. So, should be overall a really nice transformation. How much time? Oh, we're already at 30 minutes. Wow. All right, I guess let's summarize this video. Arbitrary rule number one: if you are going to buy a muscle car, specifically to fit into the car scene and go to events and yada, 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 I don't write the rules. You got to get the V8 though. You got to get at least a V8. You can do whatever you want. It's your money. But I am warning you, and I'm letting you know what it'll be like if you don't. As for JDM cars or other cars that don't really have options like that, I don't think you need to get the top of the line trim. I don't think you need to go out and buy a Type R. I don't think you need to go out and buy an STI. I don't think you need to go out and buy, you know, XYZ. You guys get what I'm saying? I don't think you guys have to. I think as long as you get the sport model of some sort, I think you'll be good. Like, don't go out and buy an Impreza. Go out and buy a WRX. Don't go out and buy a Lancer. Go out and buy, I mean, I guess the Lancer Evolution. But you get what I'm saying. You don't need the premium model. You don't need the top of the line model. It's not necessary. Now, if you're going to be talking shit online, maybe then at least spend the extra money, but you don't need it. Same with Corvettes. Corvette's a great example. You don't need to go out and buy a ZR1. I wanted a ZR1, so yeah, I went out and bought one. But you can have fun in a Stingray. You can have fun in a Grand Sport or a Z06. You don't need to go out and buy the top of the line one. So yeah, ultimately though, just buy whatever you want. At the end of the day, buy whatever you want. So whatever you can afford and whatever you want. But if you can wait out and get the trim level that you really want, don't be impatient. Take your time, save a little extra dough, and buy the one you actually want. You'll thank me later. Anyways, hopefully you enjoyed this. Let me know down below, subscribe, and until next rant, peace.